What is up? We are live for the very first Nick and Alex baseball show. I am your host, Alex Fast, joined, as always, by the style icon himself, Nickelby Pollack. Nick, how you doing?
What is happening? It is the Nick and Alex baseball show. We've been playing this for ages. I'm so happy all of you live on Twitch right now are watching this. It's Tuesday night at 10 p.m. Eastern time. We're going to be doing this every single week on Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern time as Alex Fast and I get to talk about baseball, not fantasy baseball. We're going to talk about just baseball. And I can't wait for this. Just baseball. And I had to wear my Shohei Ohtani shirt for that. You know,
I had to wear my Sigaros shirt for that.
And before we begin, I do want to say thanks so much to Eric Mura, who right now is producing this show live. He's with us. You rock so much, Eric, and Adrian Perry as well for working really hard to put together the graphics that you're going to be seeing today. This is a production. This is, yes, a podcast that you might be hearing on Wednesday or on Thursday. And yes, you might be watching this on YouTube tomorrow, but this is a live show and we want it to be a live show. So what are the kind of things that people can expect today, Fast?
The first thing that they can expect is, we talked about this a little bit earlier, it is officially plaid, so we can curse as much as... No, I'm just kidding. Just wanted to... I know that the chat was blowing up about that. So there's a lot of things that you guys can expect. I mean, Nick already hit the nail on the head about what you're going to be able to expect overall with this podcast, but and show and live experience. You're going to be able to see our mugs and see my terrible laugh in person. But what are we going to be talking about today? Now, that's a nice mug. Now that's a mug. We're going to be talking about a few things. We're going to be doing overall baseball chats where we're going to focus a little bit on some recent events, some things that have happened in the past couple of days. We're going to be talking about the umps and our kind of opinions on that. We also have pitcher of the week, hitter of the week. We've got some standings check-ins that we're going to be doing. And most importantly, we've got 3 pre-filmed segments that we're really excited about. Why don't you detail what these pre-filmed segments that people should expect to see over the course of this broadcast are?
Let's just say the names, and look forward to those throughout the show. If you're listening on the podcast, you're not gonna get them. You got to watch it live on Twitch. You got to see it also on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/pitcherlist. But mine is called Scout's Honor, and you're gonna see Alex Fast, of course, a rendition of Base Hits. And
back.
I don't know what to call the other one. It is just hilarity with Alex Fast.
I don't know if it has like an official name. The quiet name has just been The Fake Commercial. And it's my terrible attempt at humor. We're going to get to all of these. We are very excited to debut them. We have put a lot of work into them. So we're very excited to show them to you and then circulate them out into the world. But let's get into why you're all here, which is Nick and I talking about baseball.
Yeah.
So, Nick, the very first thing that we wanted to talk about now, this has been in the news for the past couple of days, but it's still something that we kind of wanted to have a conversation about, which was this Reds no-hitter. They got no hit. They ended up losing the game. Hunter Green goes, 118 pitches?
Yeah.
So let's talk about that for a second. First of all, let's talk about how Hunter Green was kind of managed in that game. What are your thoughts on that? Are you good with letting him go out and throw 118 pitches?
No, I am not.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe this. I saw that the Pirates getting no hit. I was like, oh, cool. Let me tune into this game. And I saw at the time that Hunter Green was at 15 pitches.
He's on the mound.
Why are they letting this play? And his first ever blew my mind. They kept him going for the video right now.
Never done this in this
We're we're gonna have some bumps and spoofs and goofs that happen over the course of this. So thank you, chat, for letting us know. I don't know if the audio is worse than Carlos Hernandez's fastball. That might be taking it a little bit too much, but yeah, we're gonna work on some of those audio issues. But to get back to what you were talking about with the Reds, right? I mean, what do you like? Is there anything there of like the Reds are kind of such a lightly a mess of an organization right now that it's kind of nice for their fans to have something to get excited about in the moment? Or is it like, you should be thinking more into the future, right? And thinking about Hunter Green's arm health, right?
Right. No, exactly. I understand that. Hey, maybe we have this moment, as you're saying, for the Reds, but no. If you're a Reds fan, you're excited about what you're going to see for Hunter Green, and I'm worried. I'm just worried that there might be some ramifications for this. I normally talk about the no hitter hangover, where we see guys after that game. We saw Joe Musgrove last year. He needed a little extra time to recover from his no hitter. And I worry that maybe that will have some long-term ramifications for Hunter Green because of this. I know that in the past, we've seen guys go 115 pitches, no problem. That's fine. And maybe down the line, Hunter Green can be that guy, but not in his first season. You do not want to push him like this.
So it's a slightly different set of circumstances, but did you feel the same way about Kershaw with the perfect game earlier in the season? Like
I thought that was the right
to
move.
take him out?
Honestly, you got to do that. And I get it. I like, if you want to put him out there for one more innings, technically only 6 batters at most, because then he'd get removed from the first time someone reaches base. But if you watch that game with Kershaw, he was not pristine in the 6th and 7th innings. I mean, his slider was supposed to be down and in constantly, is hanging up in the zone. And there are many times that those hitters should have gone a hit, or they normally would have, and they just didn't. So, there are those nuances of the game that you can just look at the box score and say, oh, he only threw X amount of pitches and he should have been able to do it. But there were signs already that Kershaw was fatigued and was throwing intense pitches at that point. And you do not want that in the first start of the season for a guy that is supposed to be there through the entire year. I mean, unfortunately, he's on the IL right now. I don't think it's because of that, but yeah, you have to be smart about it with a manager for what the season is than in the moment. And I think Dave Roberts did the right thing.
It's funny. I was actually, let's go ahead. Let's just do these fun name drops, right? I was having a conversation with David Cohn, and he was talking about the Kershaw no-hitter. I think he made his thoughts known about this in one of the broadcasts as well. And he was saying that the off-ramp, which I always thought was kind of interesting, the off-ramp as a manager is, I think, the 8th inning is what he said, right? Meaning that's where the manager's opportunity to go out right before the 8th inning and say, okay, you're coming in or you're not coming in for this no-hitter or for this perfect game. And if it gets to the 8th, then you're just letting him go until he ends up giving up the no-hitter or ends up giving up the perfect game. And I thought that was kind of an interesting concept, right? I mean, like the notion of just an off-ramp for a pitcher was, I thought, pretty interesting. But listen, we've got plenty of other topics that we want to get to. The next one was another big thing that happened in the news this week, which was Albert Pujols turning into a Cy Young candidate. Really, like that's, I think it's kind of the best way to put it. Now we've heard all the different.
Is amazing. The
is it negative?
His xFIP is incredible. That's really the real stat that we should be looking at here.
All right. I think that I don't really necessarily want to talk about the incredible arsenal of Albert Pujols. What I do want to talk about is the Cardinals' really hot start. I mean, they're 19-16 currently. They're right behind the Brewers, like 3.5 games back behind the Brewers, but sitting firmly in second place right now. They've done all of this without Jack Flaherty, right? Are they kind of for real? Is this a team that you think is going to be able to make a legitimate push over the course of the season?
I mean, the Cardinals always find a way, don't they? Fast. It's the Cardinals' devil magic. I love
Team Jurassic Park.
Yeah. Juan Yepez coming to the team, joining the team is amazing. You have Nolan Gorman as well that hopefully can make an impact later this season. But Nolan Arenado is still doing great things. So is Paul Goldschmidt, Tommy Edman at the top of that rotation. And while Adam Wainwright isn't quite the man that we wanted him to be, it's kind of almost as if him and Miles Michaelis have swapped places, as Michaelis once again tonight produced. It's fun. Defense is still elite as there is. And when I look at the NL Central, I mean, it's the Cardinals and the Brewers. The Cubs aren't really going to be making a major play. We know the Reds aren't, and we know the Pirates aren't. So there's always an opportunity there. Get them to the playoffs, and kind of who knows from there. So yeah, it could be really fun in St. Louis.
Nick, we got our first pivot.
What do we got?
We're pivoting. You brought up something that I've been thinking about the past couple of days, and because I was so scatterbrained when we were prepping and planning and thinking about what we were going to talk about, this completely got away from my mind. So this is a pivot. It's hot. We're coming in hot, and I want your hot thoughts on it. Okay. I don't know if you've been watching a lot of San Francisco Giants games, right? But one of the things, maybe the only reason I might have noticed this is because I was rostering Jock Peterson for a while on my fantasy team. We're not talking about fantasy, we're talking about baseball. I've noticed that teams seem to be pinch hitting much more often, right? And this is something that I think the Giants have been doing a lot, where they're really playing the matchups to the point where it's not about who's starting which game. It's also about who the relievers are, and then they're going to pinch hit for whoever. Yesterday, Wilmer Flores pinched hit for Jock Peterson, who was cleanup, I believe, coming into the game. And I think the same thing happened earlier today with the Dodgers. I might be misremembering, but I think Ketel Marte, who was originally scratched with something with his hand, came into pinch hit for Josh Rojas.
Sure.
Do you think with no DH, we're kind of heading to a period in baseball where we start to see that a little bit more, where guys who are really good hitters start to get pinch hit for guys that might be able to have better numbers against a particular reliever?
Yeah, that absolutely could be happening. I mean, I think with the DH, you get more opportunities to have those moments. You had all these NL teams with pinch hitters beforehand that had to be saved, and now they don't necessarily need to be. They just work with the matchups now instead of using them for that one time that you'll need to replace the pitcher. So yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've been seeing this kind of stuff with the Rays, even about just the super lefty heavy lineups versus the right-handed ones. I I'm not too shocked about it. Sorry for your fantasy, but honestly, we're not going to talk about fantasy today. That's it. No more fantasy team stuff. Fast. This is the
Yeah, we
baseball.
can't say it. This is the
We're outta
baseball
here.
show. I mean, how do you feel about it? Like, if you're going to a game, right? How do you
Mm.
really feel about it as a fan?
Well,
Uh,
it
I,
could go both ways. Like if you're there for Jock Peterson, that's one thing, but you
Mhm.
can also say, "Oh, cool! I get to see more of my players in this game because this guy
That's
is
an interesting
pinch hitter."
perspective.
And there is one perspective of my wall because as you're asking this question, the whole sound panel fell down, and
Mhm.
even it felt a little disturbed at the idea. So I'm going to side my wall here and say, you know what? No more pinch hitting. I want to see my
No,
guys. I
but
want to see Jock Peterson the entire game. All right.
yeah, I mean, the only way that I can think of it, like people being upset about it, is if it would slow the pace of play, right? That would be
Sure.
something that people would get upset about. But obviously, it doesn't. Guys are going to know up, advance. Hey, you're going to come up. You're in the batter's box. It's definitely something for more people to argue about, right? If Wilmer Flores came in last night and had a poor showing, it's like, well, Jock Peterson might have hit a home run there. So it's something interesting to keep track of. The other thing that I want to pivot to before we get to our first segment here is something that happened today in the Dodgers game with a really poor check swing call,
Oh,
right? This speaks to a larger thing about the way that umpires are being talked about, right? Anytime you go and check, you're going to see that the umps are getting it a lot. So here's the example, right? Dave Roberts actually got ejected because this was called a not a swing. This was ruled not a swing. It actually ended up leading to a run scoring. Dodgers would still win the game, but actually really
of
close to
course they
turning
would.
the tide here. We'll say it again.
Of course the Dodgers still won.
Yeah, well, no, I mean they've been kind of rough recently. It's not been pretty, and the people in LA are really upset about it.
Mm.
Here's the other thing too that I bring into this conversation: called strike rates are basically more correct than they've ever been in the history of the sport right now. The umpires are actually doing better by a few metrics than ever before. What do you think is the issue? Is it social media kind of blowing things up out of proportion? Is it, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say you're completely right. We have more exposure to what's right and wrong. It's less of us just kind of sitting out in our armchair and yelling at the TV. To now we actually have more communication about it and more technology to kind of showcase it when it's not exactly on the zone. Those boxes you see on TV are not 100% correct, and it's really hard to define a strike zone. So for us to be upset because just half an inch, not even a millimeter of the ball is outside of the zone, then we think like the umpire needs to get that right. But it happens all the time. And if you look back at the 1990s and you watch a lot of these games, even the famous ones, of course, with Levon Hernandez's start in the playoffs, but just a traditional game, there were a lot of terrible, terrible calls, and it was the nature of the game. And now that we have so much more scrutiny on everything, it's going to feel like it's more exposed and more are heightened relative to before. But being an umpire is a really, really tough job. Yes, there are some that are truly exceptions that maybe don't deserve to be behind the plate, but there are so many that do such a good job of it. It's really, really tough to do. And I do, I do see in other sports, of course, there is also activity of fouls and flags and everything like that. And we don't give enough credit to the umpiring done in the majors for the most part. It's easy for us to yell at it, but I do want to believe that robo umps will come because I think both sides will be happy about it. Have a challenge system. Don't slow down the game because every single play needs to be exactly right. Every single pitch needs to be right. But if people are upset, they have the opportunity to challenge it. I don't see why really there won't be a play that isn't challengeable. I hear that all the time. Like this one is, this one isn't. I don't understand why exactly for a lot of
Yeah.
these. And the more that we open that up and have a smoother system, as simple as a challenge thing. Hey, I'm using my challenge as a pitcher today, and the umpire just taps something. It's a green light or a red light, and there you go. Move on. Got the call right.
Yeah.
That's it. Done. I think that stuff can be implemented and will be implemented in due time.
So there's a few thoughts that I have about that. One, I do love the notion of a pitcher being able to use one challenge per appearance. But what cracks me up is like, I don't think pitchers have the best judgment whatsoever, especially in the moment. You know what I mean? They're so brimming with confidence as they should be when they're on the mound, and everything that they're throwing is a strike. And listen, we are not sponsored by the MLB union, but I do very much feel a sense of compassion because I think their job is extremely thankless, right? We rarely tweet fantastic umpiring performance, and there are a slew of fantastic young umpires. But I will say this, to the best of my understanding, in the umpires union, the way that they are grading a missed strike that is 2 inches off the plate is the same in their grading system as a missed strike that is 4 inches off the plate.
Right.
There's no weighted gradient. And that to me is if we end up not pivoting to robo umpires, which I don't think we will for a few more years. I think they still want to get the kinks out. We could be 3 or 4 years away, maybe, I don't know. But if we do that, like that seems like a very simple thing to come up with a better grading system, right? If you miss by a lot, that should reflect. I will say the last thing on this, I really wish we did what the KBO did, which is umpires getting sent down and called back up.
Oh,
That
man.
is,
Yeah, that's just never going to
that's
happen because of the
awesome.
union.
No,
Yeah.
it'll never happen.
I
It'll
know.
never happen with the union.
And by the way, before we continue, we are going to be giving away some PL Plus on this show. And how we're going to be doing it, because we want to thank everybody tuning in live. We're going to show a player page from Pitcher List of a player, and it's going to be here in just a moment. And you're going to see that. Figure out who it is. Keep it to yourself. And at the end of the show, when we do our last, you will get to put that name into chat. If you get it right, you'll be eligible to win. We're giving away 2 free months of PL Plus, not just 1, 2. So make sure you take a look at this, study it, think of who could that be, and get ready to do it at the end of the show. But we should get to some segments fast.
We gotta, first of all, we gotta have the who could it be now? We gotta get that music.
Yeah, we got it. We'll get some music or something. It's the first show. We feel very lucky.
First show. We're gonna learn
to have all these little fun things going on.
Yes,
and Eric's doing a great job, and
he's doing. Eric's crushing it. And so here's the thing. A few weeks ago, Nick hooked me up and gave me the opportunity to go talk to Eric's school. Right? That that I've been able to have with that friend Nick here hooking that up for me. But it made me realize all these talking podcasts that we have, all the different pitchers, that's something that I want to do more. But if I'm going to do that, I need to advertise my services. I need to advertise my services. So what did I do? Well, I took a second, wrote a little thing at 2:00 in the morning when I couldn't get my baby to sleep. And I came up with this very dumb fake commercial edited by the brilliant Josh Sperry that I'm very excited to show with you. So hopefully we can get these audio issues fixed. Let us know in the chat if the audio is still a little wonky. But Nick and I are going to take a step back. We're going to watch this very dumb commercial with you. We want, I think we're having some technical issues. No, go ahead. We're going to get queued up. So what I
you.
did is I was going through a really dark phase in my life, and everything felt very nihilistic, very German expressionist, very like. So I said, you know what? John Cage came up with a piece of music called 3:43, which is just 3 minutes and 43 seconds of silence. I think that's what it's called. And I wanted to combat that, and I thought that was really gonna
I think
make
that was a
pitchers want to
symbol
talk to me.
of of just how many pitchers are going to be reaching out to you, right?
Exactly.
That was it. It's just
it was just a void. It was a void. I wanted to open up my heart to the world, and what better way to do that than to just keep it all black?
Yeah, didn't you see all the pitchers there that were just running to go talk to Pat?
We're just dying. All right, let's try and do it one more time. Let's see if we can get it to work.
I believe
in Eric. Listen, we knew there were going to be bumps and spoofs and goofs.
I feel like we're part of the the Pittsburgh Pirates right now.
Why do you say that?
Because we're going knowing that we don't know. I'm not going to finish the sentence. No, I got nothing. I got nothing. Absolutely nothing.
All right. While we go ahead and try and get some of those kinks worked out, let's go ahead and move on to the next baseball topic that we wanted to talk about. Eric, you let us know if you're able to get that working, and if so, then we'll go back to it and we'll debut it. If not, we can always debut it on Twitter a little bit later. One prompt that I wanted to talk about before we move on to the pitch of the week and the pitcher of the week and the hitter of the week. I want to give Eric a little more time to get that commercial up. So this prompt that I saw on Twitter is, I think, a really interesting conversation that I'd like to have with you. And this is coming from @DBITLefty. And he says, I was thinking about this prompt and I'm curious about other people's opinions. I might have one, but I'm not sold on it. Among pitchers, not position players, currently in Major League Baseball, who is the youngest player that will ultimately end up in the Hall of Fame? That's an interesting question.
Right. Yeah. So it's really tough. You can cheat it. You can pretty much say like, well, okay, Jacob deGrom is the one that we know that it is, right? But we're really asking like, who of the young ones do we actually project to truly being in the Hall of Fame? And it's really tough because there's a theory or there's a feeling right now, and a lot of these young studs that we have are not necessarily equipped to last the amount of time that Scherzer and Verlander and Kershaw, Grom are right now. I can make a case, honestly, for one guy, and that's Sandy Alcantara. And he might be on the younger side. I believe he's under 30. So that might be the case. Unless there's someone that really sparks in the next year or two without actually being a strong one right now. You could say maybe even Pablo Lopez on that side, but I think that his longevity, his amount of innings aren't going to be like it is with Alcantara, because that's really the main element I'm taking away is how many innings is Shane McClanahan going to throw, and at this level where he needs to be, right? It's hard, and I don't have a great answer. Maybe Alek Manoah can do this forever. Yeah, that would be a fun one. I know Josh Sperry's going to say Kyle Wright, even though he had like 3 terrible seasons already. Joe Ryan, I'm seeing from the chat, from the Constant Law. Maybe that's the case, but I don't know. I hope it is McClanahan. He's certainly a McClanahan fan, and that's what Ellen Adair is letting me know right now. That's obviously Shane McClanahan.
So actually, this is a conversation where Nick and I were figuring out who we thought a little bit earlier. Shane McClanahan is a name that came up, and he is a great guess. I guess if I was truly a betting man, I'd probably put my money on him. My concern is sometimes, the Rays can kind of burn out those arms, especially when they're high velocity arms. It wouldn't surprise me if in 2 years Shane McClanahan was a part of a trade that had us questioning the Rays like we do every time they trade away one of their best pitchers.
Man, let's not put that into the universe.
I hope not. I'm going to keep my answer really specific because right? I'm looking at the rookies from this year. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an interesting mix. There's not a lot of great names to choose from. Joe Ryan, which is probably the easy choice, could be a lot of fun and go with Spencer Strider. I'm going to say
no, not a chance. Sorry.
No, I'm not saying it. I'm going to say it. I'm not going to say it. I'm going to say it's George Kirby.
George Kirby,
Why
I can
not?
see that because you would think more of a high floor guy now, right? Someone that can just kind of do it for a while, and then maybe unlock something else that then pushes him above, right? I understand that philosophy when tackling this. It's just so difficult to really do. I mean, Walker Bueller, how old is he?
Yeah, like that's what I was thinking about Corbin Burns, but Corbin Burns is 27, so I was like, I don't know, maybe that's a little bit too old. Walker Bueller's actually the same age; he's 27 as well. So
Zach
I
Gallen.
don't know
I'm
if.
seeing everyone's surprised that I haven't mentioned. Yeah, it's a good
Oh,
call.
that's an interesting one.
Yeah.
Zach Gallen is a really interesting one. I mean, obviously putting together a heck of a year. He's 26, so that might be a little bit on the older side for this prompt as well. All right, before we move on to the next segment, we got word. We're gonna try it one more time for this
One more
commercial.
time.
If it
You
doesn't
got this.
work, if it doesn't work, it is what it is, baby. We're having fun talking baseball. So let's try and see this commercial. Let's see if we can get it to work one more time. Give you that.
It really was.
The
It's
fade
a
out
lovely
was
touch.
so dramatic.
It was
It was
there.
what?
It was just there was a lot of smoke in the way.
Yeah. Did you guys not see that? I saw it and I thought it was hilarious and it won an Oscar. That's what
I feel
saw.
like this is actually like Paul Rudd with Conan O'Brien with a Mac. That's really what should be right now.
The what is that from? Oh my god, I can't remember the name of that movie right now.
I got it.
Yeah, Mac and Me.
Yeah.
That's what we should do. That's what we should do. Every time we try to air a segment, it just goes to a dark screen. Listen, it is what it is. We're going to move on to some of the other things that we wanted to talk about. So this is a segment that we were really excited about. Nick and I were thinking about what we wanted to talk about. And we were thinking, man, there are certain pitches that are thrown right now that maybe aren't as talked about, right? Like Nick, probably the first thing you think of when you think of changeup is what? Sandoval?
Sandoval's up there. You think of Pablo Lopez, but when I think about what we want to do is we want to highlight a new pitch every single week, and one that isn't necessarily talked about as much as others. Kevin Gausman, you can say even that's a changeup, but it's really a splitter. But I wanted to highlight something that caught my eye this past week, and that was Chase Silseth's splitter in his MLB debut. 39% O swing, 36% zone rate, 21% swing strike rate. Really made a lot of these athletic hitters look foolish, especially, I mean, the first two pitches he threw even was a 97-mile-per-hour fastball to Tony Kemp by a dirty changeup that went down and away. This is someone who's making his second start later this week against the Athletics. And maybe you could say, oh, it was just the Athletics. But there's a lot of hope in this. That splitter is being set up by that mid-90s fastball that hopefully stays at that velocity. We did see later on in the start that Chase Silseth did fall down closer to the 93, 94 range. Instead of 97, I think even one point pushing 98. But man, armed with that fastball splitter combination, if you can do anything remotely close to Gausman, which is, I mean, right now Gausman's throwing like an 80% strike rate on fastballs, which is just insane for how they do not get destroyed. Sets. You see that Silseth, getting Athletics again is going to help him with it. So keep your eye out for that pitch. It could be a really, really fun one.
Yeah, I dig that, and man, it is fun to watch that splitter. You did such a great breakdown of him and watching the first two pitches of the it's always difficult to encapsulate a pitcher in two pitches, but while that didn't do that, it did give you a pretty good idea of what you're working with Silseth. So that was a really great video. If you haven't checked it out, you should go you should go do that. Some of the swings he got that night, as you saw in that little highlight reel, were fantastic. The pitch that I wanted to highlight for me that has kind of stuck out for me is kind of a surprise. One just kind of jumped out at me from a Baseball Savant page, and that's Michael Lorenzen's fastballs. Now, if you're thinking about some of the greatest fastballs on the Angels right now, the first name that probably comes to mind is actually Shohei Ohtani, right? Michael Lorenzen's fastballs are actually better. Now, when you go to the Baseball Savant page and you're looking at run value, you're able to categorize by pitch type. The one thing that stinks is when you're looking at fastballs, you're actually not looking at just a four-seamer or a sinking. You're looking at an amalgam of all of the fastballs that they have. So when I'm talking about Michael Lorenzen's fastballs, I'm talking about his sinker and his four-seamer, but actually both of them are fantastic right now. If we're talking about run value on both of those pitches, it's actually the second best in all of baseball, meaning that his fastballs right now as a combination are some of the most dominant in baseball, especially on the edges of the plate, which was really surprising to me because this isn't really a guy who's particularly known for his command. It's also kind of shocking because the K rate hasn't necessarily been there for him. But when it comes to inducing weak contact, both of those pitches, his sinker and his four seamer, of course, he features the sinker a little bit more than the four seamer, have been really great at not giving up a lot of contact. The four seamer has a 215 WOBA right now, a 143 batting average against. And if you look at the sinker, it's actually not that far off. It has a 180 batting average against and a 208 WOBA right now. It's funny because this is a guy you would kind of associate having really good breaking pitches, right? When he was a reliever, that changeup, well, it's not a breaking pitch, but the changeup was really great. He had that great off-speed pitch there. The slider was pretty effective for him at a 24% swing strike rate a few years ago. It hasn't been there for him, those breaking pitches at all. No. I mean, I think he has what is it, like a 16% K rate? I know it's a 20.
It's weird.
Really bad.
Yeah,
but those fastballs, man, you don't think about him. You don't think about him a lot because of how he's been performing. They've been really, really good.
Yeah, absolutely. The O swing on the sinker. I mean, you guys know me. I care about seeing sinkers of 30% or higher on that O swing, and 38% for Lorenzen so far. You know me. When you think of Nick Pollack, you think of, oh, how much I love those O-swing sinkers.
Sinkers.
I don't know what I said. I thought it was something stupid. Anyway, the slider, is not the main pitch for Lorenzen. Yeah, those fastballs returning a lot of good value so far as the results. Four-seamer, really low CSW. That's for I think it's like 22% or something like that. So that is the big worry I have about the longevity of this. There's still a decent amount of hard contact between both of them for Lorenzen, but the results have been there and the locations have been there well. So maybe he's just outperforming those peripherals given the command thus far of them. That's why Lorenzen has been good despite the slider having that sub 10% swing strike rate.
I'll be curious to see which way the pendulum swings for him, to see if maybe that slider starts to tick up a bit and he can start to get a few more whiffs, or if the fastballs start to fall away. Listen, we've already talked about a pitch of the week, so we're going to come back to pitcher of the week, so we're not inundated in things.
Oh no,
we're going to actually hitters,
don't I?
We're gonna do it. We're gonna do it. We're gonna talk about hitter of the week. So I'm not even gonna start. I want to know, Nick, who is your hitter of the week?
My hitter of the week is baseball's player of the week, or I think hitter of the week. I don't know, whatever they assigned him, and that's Bryce Harper. And I gotta say this about him. Yes, he has a 411 WRC plus in the past week. All of that, fine. He's an amazing hitter. That's great. The fact that he's doing this with a torn UCL is pretty dang cool. I think one of the great elements of baseball is that every single year there are these amazing storylines of players performing under certain conditions and how they travel through the season to be who they are. And it's a game of consistency, a game of constant production. And nobody is going to go through a season without being sore or hurt or possibly missing games. And for Bryce Harper, who, Bailey Freeman suggested was still oddly underrated, to do this and still perform is pretty freaking cool. Good job, Bryce. I'm proud of you, man. Put that team on your back. Now, the DH situation in Philly is going to be kind of funny, considering now you got to see Nick Castellanos in right field and Kyle Schwarber playing in the field always, and so on and so forth. And I feel bad for maybe Zach Wheeler and Aaron Nola and some Ranger Suarez and Zach Eflin and whoever else is on that team. I'm sure there's someone massive. Kyle Gibson, your favorite. But nevertheless, seeing Bryce Harper still producing despite a massive injury is really, really cool.
So who did you vote for in that poll?
Which poll?
In Foolish Baseball's, who's more underrated between Bryce Harper and Mike Trout? I think it was his poll.
I would say it's Bryce Harper.
You would say Bryce Harper? I actually voted for Mike Trout.
And why is that?
I think I agree that both are underrated, but I think you can't overrate Mike Trout. And also, he is still a name that if it wasn't for the fact that I had a t-shirt with his face that's literally the size of the t-shirt, my wife probably wouldn't know his name.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And so that's always going to be the answer for me, because I also think some people might know Bryce Harper a little bit more. I feel like he's a little bit more in the media. He's a little bit more flashy. He's done a bit more sponsorships. He owns a hair cuttery. Mike Trout tweets "Go Eagles, go" and loves the weather. And as a result, has not really been the poster child for the sport.
I have a lot of questions here. So first of all, hair cuttery? That's a word?
Isn't it? I mean, it's the name of a place, the hair cuttery, isn't it?
Oh, I have no idea. Okay. I mean, you
I
can
think
see
he
my
owns
hair. I
Fellow
don't clearly
Barber.
go anywhere.
Yeah.
Second thing, underrated to who is really the question. So if you want to say to those that are not following baseball, yeah, I would absolutely argue that Mike Trout, who is the greatest player of our generation, essentially,
Mhm.
should be heralded as such. You know, people say,
Yeah.
oh, try and name a baseball player. It's David Ortiz and Alex Rodriguez, and it should be Mike Trout, right? And Derek Jeter. On the other side of it, to baseball fans, we all know the greatest player is Mike Trout. We know this.
Yeah.
It's just established. I have my coffee table book of Do It for the Stories, Mike Trout drawings, because of course it's Mike Trout during the lockout, right? And Bryce Harper, we just kind of thought of, oh yeah, he's really good, but he's a Hall of Famer. Like he is a Hall of Famer, Bryce Harper, and he's doing that right now in the prime of his career, and we're not really treating him as such. We've said like, yes, we know Mike Trout is, but we don't realize that Bryce Harper is too.
Yeah.
So in that way, for me, it's Bryce Harper.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think there are both some really valid points to it. We see some people in the chat bringing up how Juan Soto, another underrated baseball player. I think we can honestly say that every single baseball player is underrated. But again, how Nick mentioned it, it's by how you're defining underrated, whether they're, stars in the media. If that's the definition, then yeah, every single one of them is underrated.
Absolutely.
Right?
What else we got here? Who's your hitter of the week? Fast.
My hitter of the week is another guy that's theoretically underrated. It's funny. A couple of weeks ago, we had this great clip from Travis Jankowski where he was like, "Hey, man, no one's going out there and buying my jersey," right? Which I loved because then people went out there and they bought jerseys, and then the Mets put his like jersey everywhere. But to me, there's another guy on that team who, in my opinion, outside of New York Mets fandom, no one's really buying his jersey. They're buying DeGrom, they're buying Scherzer, they're buying Alonso. But I want to talk about the guy who's arguably the best center fielder in the National League right now, and that's Brandon Nemo. I mean, his baseball savant page right now just looks like the elevator in The Shining. I mean, it's unbelievable. He's 85th percentile or better in exit velocity, in xWOBA, in walk rate, in WOBA, in chase rate. He's barreling the ball more so than he ever has before in his career. He's got a near 11% barrel rate, which is pretty significant for him. And the increased barrel rate isn't just on four seamers, it's actually across all pitch types. He's swinging outside of the zone more often, oddly enough, and making more contact while swinging less inside the zone, but making more contact. He's just making more contact all over the place. I think he's waiting for his pitch a little bit more. That's kind of what that leads me to believe, and he's having a lot of success doing it. He's really just the total package. I mean, he leads the NL among center fielders in FWAR, in WOBA, in WRC plus. He's an above average defender, according to outs above average, with a really good jump on the ball. He's also, interestingly enough, a free agent this year, I believe. And there are a lot of competitive teams that could use a center fielder starting next year. Obviously, the Mets would have to completely fall apart for them to even consider moving Brandon Nemo. But I don't know. Maybe next year he could be in a Red Sox uniform. I don't know if they were,
We'll see.
maybe
You heard it
Enrique
here
Hernandez
first.
turns it around. Yeah, you heard it here first. But it's interesting. He's been amazing.
I will say the last 5 years, and including 2018, Brandon Nemo has had an OBP below 400 just once.
That's
which
unbelievable.
Is astounding. Absolutely astounding. Hopefully we get, that 140 game season that we saw in 2018 once again for Nemo, as it was 69 games in 2019, 92 in 2021, and so far so good in 2022.
No one is more fun to watch run to first base too, right? I mean, like that, there's no one better to watch take a walk because he just like sprints over to first. And I apologize. I said Nemo at the top. It is Nemo. The reason I said Nemo, I went to a Brooklyn Cyclones game when he was there, and the bobblehead was Brandon Nemo, like holding a bag of goldfish.
Oh, that's pretty great. I dig that.
I'm a dingus. Gave it away. All right. So before we move on to the next segment, we got to talk about it. It's not fantasy, but we can still talk about pitchers. Nick, I would like to know who your pitcher of the week is.
Well, if you guys know me, I give out what's called an ace is gonna ace label to those that truly have become elite, and we expect them to be elite moving forward. And there are a couple guys that I gave it to this week, and I want to just highlight Pablo Lopez. 11 strikeouts, 1 earned run, 7 innings against the Milwaukee Brewers. He has allowed 0 or 1 run in all but one of his starts this season. It is incredible. And what's even more incredible to me is he's doing it with just a fastball and a changeup. Sometimes the cutter shows up. And the last start actually had a nice strikeout on that cutter down and away. But primarily, this is four seamers and changeups. Really nice four seamers in this last start. There's 12 called strikes on that, while the changeup had 14 whiffs on its own. Pablo Lopez, he does good things. I mean, you can see right now, look at these changeups. They're incredible. Cutter away for a strikeout. Pablo Lopez was higher than Alcantara for me this week, and which is really hard for me to do because I absolutely adore Sandy Alcantara throwing 100 on his 93rd pitch of the day. But yeah, Pablo Lopez is just consistent and dominating right now, and I just hope he can keep doing it and avoid that blow up.
He is a lot of fun, man. He is so fun to watch, and he's just the reason we started this conversation by like pitches that are totally underappreciated. You said the Pablo Lopez changeup, but every time I feel like the larger conversation with baseball fans happens about some of the greatest changeups in baseball. Maybe because of Miami or whatever it is, his name isn't mentioned, and I just think it's just an amazing pitch. It's just an amazing pitch. But that brings me to a guy who I think has another fantastic changeup, though he doesn't use it as much, and that's my pitcher of the week. Surprise, surprise, and that's Tarik Skubal. I swear this is not because I just had the pleasure of interviewing him. I just really enjoy what he's doing. I like that we've seen this increase in the slider usage. I like that he just had, even if it was against the Orioles, I like that he had that dominant 11K game with no earned runs, just 3 hits, 2 walks over 6 innings. And aside from this one really poor performance against Minnesota, where there should have been maybe 1 or 2 earned runs, and I really need to pick back that campaign up where I promised myself I was going to tweet the video of the hit that was ruled a hit, where it should have been an error every day until they changed their minds. It should not have been a hit. It's insane that it was ruled a hit. Totally changes his ERA. I digress. I love how efficient he's been with his strikeouts. I mean, the put away rate on the changeup and the sinker and the slider are all like career highs for him right now. He said it himself that he's actually kind of fallen in love with all of these pitch types that he has. And Nick, I'm kind of curious for your thoughts on this, because the big thought that we have about Tarik Skubal is, hey, you've got this curveball. It's beautiful. Your pitching coach says throw it more, but you're out there on the mound, and Tarik Skubal gave me the impression that he's like, yeah, it's a good pitch. I really do like it, but gosh, I'm so in love with my slider. I'm so in love with my changeup. Talk to me about, is this something that you're familiar with, kind of falling in love with your pitches, which is kind of preventing you from going towards other pitches?
Oh, absolutely. You get trigger happy, kind of, not trigger happy, I should say, but you really see oh, I'm finally doing something I've never done before. And that's really cool and fun. And you just keep doing that. Right. It does remind me a lot of that conversation that you had with Tarik Skubal about Jacob deGrom saying why he doesn't throw his curveball, which would be the number 2 pitch for any other pitcher in the majors. And that when deGrom threw his curveball and allowed it to hit, he just thought, well, why didn't I throw my slider or my fastball? Why did I throw my curveball and allow this guy to get a hit? And I can understand that with Skubal. We certainly love the shape of that pitch, though, with Skubal, and throwing it about 5 times in a game. We have our stance on this sitting here from afar that the pitch could probably be thrown maybe 10% of the time instead of about 5% of the time. But it is really nice to see Tarik Skubal come together with that slider and that changeup. I've always thought this fastball was really good despite getting hit really hard last year. I saw that more as a problem with his secondaries not coming together. Thus, batters can go into the box and really cheat on that heater, knowing that they can identify the slider and changeup and really lay off of those when they'd be thrown, allowing them to really sell out for that heater and crush it. This year, though, you can't really do that. They're throwing a lot more sliders and effectively so getting strikes with them, while the changeup they showed up last time. I love it. And don't forget, that heater's still really good. So all of that combined, I can understand why he's not throwing that curveball as much.
All right, we got good news and we got bad news right now. So the bad news is we're not going to be able to show some of the segments that we had pre-filmed for this, but the good news is that the fun is going to carry on tomorrow. I'm sure Nick is going to tweet out his segment first thing in the morning, if not right after this. I will definitely make sure to tweet out the new base hits and the commercial, so you'll be able to see them. You're just going to have to get one more sleep.
Yeah, if you tune in tomorrow morning for my morning stream, 9 a.m. to 11 a.m., the first thing that I will do is I will play each of the segments that we had for this show. So make sure you tune in.
That's very lovely. That's very lovely, but it doesn't mean that we are done. Oh, wait, hold on. Eric is saying
try one more time.
We can try one more time. So let's do it. We'll
bring on the void.
Listen, we're going to try it one more time. Maybe it doesn't work. Let's see the void. Enter the void. Let's see it. This is my favorite. I love that it fades to black.
It's back at me, man.
I love it. Oh, I was just crushing depression. I thought I heard something in the background. It was Eric talking to us. That cracks me up. That might have been worth it. Even if Eric was just playing a joke on us, it really made me laugh. Don't worry, we're not done though. We're not done. We still have one more thing that we want to talk about that's baseball related before we let you guys go. We're
we've got a slew of things. We had too many things planned, and we knew that coming in.
Yeah, no, this is our big topic. It's the topic that we want to kind of, big topic here. But before we do it, you guys have joined us. I've seen the numbers spiking, and you guys are responsive in the chat. We're so happy you're here. We hope you enjoy it. Yes, we're having some small errors, but we're going to get better and better each week, and it means the world to us to be able to look out and see that you're actually tuning in for this.
Yeah,
crazy.
So don't miss a show. Go ahead. You can subscribe to this channel on Twitch. You can also subscribe to our podcast as well and leave a rating or review for that. This is the first official one for the Nick and Alex Baseball Show. Its own individual podcast feed, so go look for that. And of course, you can check it out on YouTube the next day. This is not a one-time event. Nope. This is every week, baby. This is our time to talk baseball. And we're gonna have those fun segments, which is, I don't know how people are gonna react to me actually breaking down a hitter for once. It's weird.
They don't know what to expect. It's actually you like having him in a therapist chair, like just fully breaking him down. Like, where did your father go wrong?
Video. I actually took time and did edits and everything, and it looks terrible at times. Let me tell you, it looks bad.
No.
It's a fun little video.
It's good. It's a lot of fun, but we want to get to this last big thing that we're going to talk about. It's a big topic, so I want to dive into it, right?
Sure.
And I want to do like a quick standings check-in. The reason I wanted to look at this is I had a little bit of a surprise today when I was looking at the standings, and I was like, oh my God, wow. The Yankees have a plus 73 run differential. Yeah. And it led us to this question. At the moment right now, what is the best division in baseball, according to you, Nick?
I don't know, man. I still want to say it's the AL East. I really do. The Red Sox are currently 13 games back, and I just feel that's so wrong from the Yankees. That's more of an indication the worst case scenario for the Red Sox and the best case for the Yankees, right? Meanwhile, you have the Jays that are 20-17. You have the Rays that are 22-15. And when you think about the Rays this year, I'm like, sure, there's Shane McClanahan and there's Wander Franco and that, right? And somehow it's still 22-15. I still feel that also your Orioles are going to get better as the season goes on. Grayson Rodriguez is going to come up. Adley Rutschman's going to come up. DL Hall is going to come up. Kyle Bradish, I think, is actually a good pitcher that can develop more so through the year. Maybe your boy Bruce Zimmerman is truly going to break out with that slider and change up over time. I would love to see it. Yes, they lost John Means, unfortunately. But that still could be a good team. That is not like a 60-win team. That could actually be closer to 75. So for me, it's still the AL East, but you can make a case for another division or two, and I'm curious what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I mean, the easy answer in my mind is the West, right? Because the NOS, excuse me, because the Arizona Diamondbacks have kind of shocked a lot of people, and they've come out firing out of the gate. I mean, they had, I think, a top 10 rotational ERA a couple of days ago. I don't know if the line that one. But I was going to lead with that. But the more that I look at it, the more that I'm actually leaning the AL West. Because I'm going to change what I mean about the best division in baseball. And I want to focus then on not just where the most parity could be. Yes, this is sponsored by Shohei Ohtani and the AL West. It's not necessarily where the most parity could be, but I do believe that there could be some parity there between the Astros, the Angels, and the Mariners, even though they're off to a slow start. I think it just might be one of the divisions that actually excites me most, just in terms of the players that are inside of the division, right?
Oh,
Now, you can, of course, make that case for the West because the Dodgers are chock-a-block with really great players. The Padres have their superstars. The Giants have Logan Webb. No, but like you think about the Astros, you think about the Angels, obviously with two of the biggest superstars in the sport right now. You think of the Texas Rangers, and while there aren't many great pitching names that you can bring up, it's still a fun team for Corey Seager and Marcus Semien, despite how much they're struggling right now. The Seattle Mariners, there's a lot of really fun young names to talk about right now with Julio Rodriguez, maybe Kelenic turning it around a little bit, Robbie Ray. And even the Oakland Athletics, Christian Pache might be the best follow on Twitter right now. You know what I mean? Like he is and I love that, right? We need that purity and that sense of goodness in the sport right now. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's
the Mariners might turn it around, but who knows? I kind of dig it.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that one. The Angels are Taylor Wade for the playoffs as well.
How do we cancel this?
That wasn't good.
How do we cancel
Tyler
this
Wade.
Show?
He's so good though. He's so good.
How do we cancel this show?
Yeah, there it is, guys. Well, it's been a fun run.
It's been fun. It's been a great episode.
The biggest question I have about the Angels is the sustainability of that rotation. I hope that Silseth will be a steady sixth man for them. I wonder if Lorenzen can keep this up at this level. We just saw Noah Syndergaard get his serving of regression. And I'm curious what that will look like in a couple months. That said, I think it's the best thing for baseball that the Angels are a successful team and they're a fun team. And it just means that Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani get even more national coverage, which is just a fantastic thing. And the Rangers, I will say, are interesting at the very least. I don't think Marcus Semien is this. He doesn't have a single home run right now. Yeah. I think that Corey Seager is still really good. I think there are some interesting pitchers on that team too, like Glenn Otto. You have John Gray finally kind of waking up with that slider this past week, 11 whiffs on that. And I could see that really taking him taking many steps as he has his health now too, for Texas. So they are, some interesting pieces that we never really expected the Rangers to still be at the bottom of the barrel there in the AL West. And then the Athletics, the Athletics will always find some way to not be a 40-win team.
Without a doubt.
They'll find a way. And I'm with you here. I think that's a fantastic division as well. I just really hope the Angels come out on top.
Are the Angels like one Frankie Montas away from being a very legitimate contender?
I would say they are a health away from being a very legitimate contender.
Interesting.
Right? I mean, that's the thing about the Angels rotation. Actually, I'm even seeing this here inside of chat right now. Exactly the same thing. And we've seen it constantly that we make fun of the Angels rotation failing to stay healthy. They have so far. And yeah, as long as that sticks, then I think they're this kind of team.
The results have been there too. They are a top 5 rotation by ERA and a top 10 bullpen by ERA right now. And obviously ERA not the best indicator overall, and especially not for relievers, but still it's not like they're bottom of the barrel right now. It's actually they've been very effective. When you look at the standings right now, and this could pertain to an overall division or a team in general, what do you think is the biggest surprise to you? Good or bad?
Inside the division of the AL West, or just
no. This could be like the AL Central.
Sorry,
is
I was
the biggest
still
shock.
internalizing what the guy's name was, and it's Taylor Ward. I finally got there. Finally got. We got what his name was.
It's good.
It's okay. I'm all right. I'm fine.
This could be the biggest shock. Like the AL Central is a huge shock, or this could be a team. Like that team is a big shock, and it could be.
I would say the Marlins currently being tied for second in the NL East. And I love that, because the rotation is that good, and Trevor Rogers hasn't been as bad as y'all think he has been as far as productive starts in that rotation. And of course you have Pablo Lopez, and of course you have Sandy Alcantara there as well. And Jesus Luzardo, who unfortunately just went on the IL. But that has been a massive shock to me, that, it was kind of a dark horse conversation that we're having in the preseason. Maybe it's an indication of Atlanta being 16-20 and the Phillies being 17-19. But just seeing the Marlins present there, to me, is a wonderful shock.
Yeah, I think the Marlins. I think that's a good one. I mean, anytime that rotation can get more of the limelight too. Like I'm kind of all about. To me, I think it's the Tigers and their kind of slow
Mm,
start. I really kind of had high hopes. Because they, were almost a playoff team last year. They were definitely in the race as it came down to the end of the season. And I thought they were going to be able to build upon that. They've had a lot of pitching injuries. Casey Mize goes down, Matt Manning goes down. So Tarek Skubal's kind of, got to carry the load. Eduardo Rodriguez took a little while before he really got going. The offense has been super sluggish, and here they are now at 13-24 at the bottom of the division. So that to me has kind of been the biggest shock. Obviously, very early, very, very early. I'm hoping they can turn it around because I think they have a really fun young squad, but I definitely was shocked by how sluggish it's been for them
yeah,
to
I mean,
start.
Akil Baddoo getting sent down as well,
Yep.
is a big deal. Yeah, and Torkelson hasn't quite clicked yet. I think he will at some point, but it's not looking like the resounding hitter that we wanted Torque to be for the Tigers. I think they'll come around in due time. But yeah, I mean, I remember us talking about Casey Mize and Tarek Skubal and Matt Manning, thinking, oh man, all these three great guys, which one's just gonna be the best? And it's good that Tarek Skubal is really taking that step forward. Casey Mize wasn't necessarily a bad pitcher, just not necessarily an ace for that or flirting with that for the Detroit Tigers. And Matt Manning has been not what they wanted for him so far in Detroit. Hopefully he does find that for him, and I think that is a bit of the weakness for him. And I will say too, the schedule's been really rough for the Tigers, especially for Eduardo Rodriguez, who has
Mm.
had only one comfortable outing the entire season. And maybe that does get easier as it goes on and opens the door for more confidence. And then when they do face those tougher teams again, there can be a different shift or they can be shifting their mentality. They can allow them to win those tough games. But here's the
Baseball's
thing,
doomed.
Fast. Here's the thing. We have only 4 or 5 minutes left. And there's
Yeah.
one segment that I
Yeah.
really wanted to do that I was so excited about that I want to throw at you. And what we're going to do first, because we only have 4 minutes left, is right now, if you remember that image of the player page and who that is, type in their name now to be eligible to win PL Plus. We're going to give away 2 of them. So put that player's last name into Twitch chat to be eligible for it. But we're going to go to Wild Thoughts right now. Wild Thoughts. And, I think we can each do one. I'm not necessarily going to put you on the spot if you don't need it. I have one already.
Mm-hmm.
But essentially, Wild Thoughts is just a day of, hey, you have the game of baseball, but here's a wild thought. And what I would say is, what if a player or a team can decide before the game starts, we want the juiced ball or the dead ball? And it goes
Oh.
to, it alternates every single game. I think that would be absolutely hilarious. And then you'd actually have the pitchers know how to pitch based on what ball they are throwing with. At the very
Mm.
least, I would even argue that this is a better scenario than right now, where it seems like you randomly get one type of ball.
Yeah.
It's insane the lack of consistency among the Major League Baseballs. And to be able to say, okay, we have 2 boxes. We got one on the left, we got one on the right. You got the juiced one, and it's next to like a pile of syringes. And
Mm-hmm.
then you got the dead ball, and it's just like, broken leaves and some wreaths and stuff on the
Hey, can
right.
we get some broken leaves and
Yeah,
wreaths in here, please?
gotta get those. That's my job actually at MLB. I'm the wreaths guy.
Yeah.
So that I think would be a wild change to the game that could make it pretty interesting.
You know what my wild thought is to jump off that?
What do we got?
Stop! Don't chase the ball ever.
Okay,
Stop!
that's a wild fast.
Don't do it! Stop it! It's unbelievable. You imagine you go to a football game and it's a totally different ball. You go to a basketball game, it's a totally different ball. You go to a hockey game, it's a completely different puck. You go to a cricket game, it's completely different. It doesn't make any sense. What is happening here? How do we agree? How do we all collectively? This is fine. How is this something we are picketing every single day? Can you imagine your entire livelihood is dependent on this? You're a pitcher in Major League Baseball, and you go to spring training, and you can't even use the ball yet. You gotta wait. You gotta wait. You gotta wait. You gotta wait. You imagine you go to your desk, and all of a sudden you're not using a Mac, you're using a PC, and it's in a totally different language. And they're like, "We're gonna pay you depending on how well you do your job today." And you're like, "Okay, get out the Rosetta Stone because I gotta figure out what I'm doing today at work." It's unbelievable to me. It's unbelievable to me.
Yep. Yeah, it's a wild thought, Fast. We're going to have wild thoughts every single week. You're going to tune in. Gonna have more wild thoughts for you.
I might just explode. I got to do this, Nick. We're not gonna we're gonna end on this because we have to. Because this is you got your favorite segment. We're gonna end on my favorite segment, and this is coming to you. Okay, I'm very excited about this. I want to know. And this is a segment we're called "Who's Winning the World Series this week?" Okay, and this isn't our like very serious "Who's Winning the World Series?" Right? No. I want to know who's based on this week. Who is winning the World Series? And here are the caveats as we develop this show. Once you say this team, they're gone. Can't say them ever again over the course of the show. Yeah, they disappear. They Thanos. They're done. Exactly.
And that's it.
No repeats.
I'm looking at it right now. I'm gonna get this one out of the way fast. It's the same team I was talking about before. The biggest shock to me, the Marlins. They're gonna win the World Series because all they need to do is make it there. They just need to make it. And look, right behind in the NL East, they're right below 500. You have 6 teams per league right now. They get that one wild card. They have the rotation for it. They've lost all these 1-0 games. Fine. That can go the other way in the playoffs. And hey, maybe they even make a trade in the offseason, the midseason that we expect them to do with Max Meyer and Edward Cabrera as well. Hopefully coming up. I'm saying it. It's the Marlins. The Marlins are going to win the World Series fast.
I love it. Next week, we're going to have a little graphic. We're going to put all 30 teams up. We're going to have the Marlins crossed out. And then next week will be my turn to choose one of the 29 teams to say who is going to win the World Series. But Nick, we did it. It was a beautiful ride. Did we have a little bumps on the way? Of course we did. That's life, baby. But we had a great time talking about baseball. Again, from the bottom of our hearts, it fills us with joy and shock every time that we can look over at the chat and see that you've joined us. If you're hearing this as a podcast, come check us out every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern. We're looking forward to talking with you.
And absolutely. And I just want to say congratulations to ABM 12. And it looks like, oh man, I don't know how to pronounce this. Jai Mi Arias 91. Congrats on winning PL Plus. Just send me a DM on Twitter. Can DM me at PitcherList. Can reach out and follow Alex Fast 8 on Twitter. But yeah, welcome to the first episode of Nick and Alex Baseball Show. We're gonna have video segments out next time. It's a lot of fun. We're gonna be loosened up in the future weeks. I don't know, as we do this more often. I'm happy you could tune in. Thanks everybody for being here. But I'm gonna let you sign off of this podcast. So. Thanks, everybody here. My name is Nick Pollack.
And I am Alex Fast. And we'll talk to you guys next week.